Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. So today we're talking all things money, and I'm sharing with you guys my worksheet that I use to track my budget as well as all of my expenses. So you guys can find that link down in the description below. I highly recommend you actually download that worksheet before we get started so you can follow along, because I know sometimes when we work with Excel, when we talk about money, when we talk about numbers, it can be a little bit boring. So I'm hoping if you guys can follow along and add in your own numbers, that'll make this a little bit more enjoyable for you. So before we jump right into it, just a bit of background about myself. I am actually a CPA during the day in my real job. But don't take that as I know anything about budgeting. It does not mean anything except the fact that I know how to use a calculator. But that is my day job. And then on the side, I love all things planning. So I actually run a little planner shop on Etsy. As well, I talk about planning and all things planning, productivity, mixed with a little bit of lifestyle here on the YouTubes. So I'm just going to take you right over to my iPad into Excel, and hopefully you have downloaded that spreadsheet for yourself and you can follow along. I'll share with you exactly how I do my budgeting, how I use my expenses, and how I navigate through that Excel spreadsheet, and you can use this for yourself for 2023 if it works for you. Okay, so here I have my Excel template that I used this past year, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to share it with everybody because it's been working so well for me. And just to let you guys know, I told you guys kind of all the things that I do. I have a day job, I run a little Etsy shop on the side, as well as I do YouTube. So those are kind of like the different streams of income you can think of. My Etsy shop as well as my YouTube is kind of like my little side hustle, but to preface, I do want to say that it's not incorporated, so it just gets taxed here for me in Canada as part of my own personal income, and it's not its own separate entity. So depending on where you guys are, just wanted to preface that, because depending on what you're using your budgeting and you're tracking your expenses for, that may or may not help you. Okay, so I'm going to take you through kind of the 4 tabs that I have on this spreadsheet. And the first one is kind of our main one. It says IS, which stands for income statement. The next one is my business income statement. And obviously, if you guys don't have some of these streams of income, then just ignore it. The next one is my variable expenses for my business. And then the last one says BS. It's not bull, you know. It's a balance sheet, and that's just all of my assets and my liabilities. And again, if you guys don't need the last 3 tabs, just ignore them. Obviously, once you go through the first tab here on the income statement, you'll see that this probably works for the majority of you guys. Okay, so this is just what it looks like. It's really straightforward actually, and you can just delete the elements that you don't need. You'll see here in this top right here, there's this little plus sign, and if you click that, it kind of gives you some notes about what you need to put in each of these line items. And then where there's a little yellow cell, that means that you need to put in an input. Okay, so that's just some background on the spreadsheet there. So let's get right into it. Okay, so on the left-hand side here, I've just listed my various sources of income, and then below I have all of my expenses, and then you can add in your savings, like if you're putting money away for savings, if you're leaving money in your checking account, and then at the very end you have your net balance, and this can be a net zero budget if you want it to be, because I know some people are into net zero budgeting. So that's how I have mine set up, and then we'll talk about each of the line items, how I do the budget, and how I monitor the expenses. So for those of you guys who don't think you have multiple streams of income, because say you just work at a day job, so that's your salary and that's your main job, and you don't have any other side hustles or any other streams of income, I want to talk to you about GoCashBack, and this is actually a great way to get money back, and it's almost like another source of income. So GoCashBack is actually a way that you can earn money back from all of your purchases. I mean, if you guys have been watching my channel, you guys know that especially in December, it's a pretty big spending month. So any way that I can get some money back or save extra money, I am all for it. So GoCashBack is actually really easy to use, especially if you download their app. And there are so many stores that you can earn money back from. So I'm just gonna show you here on my phone through the app all the different stores that you can earn money back from. So for me, I've here saved some of my favorite, for example, Walmart. I mean, everybody shops at Walmart, right? Old Navy, Sephora, The Bay, Staples, Children's Place for my kids. These are places that I order from so frequently, and to be able to save money back just by buying through this app is literally amazing. It's like free money. So you can see here that I've just favorited all of these stores, but there's obviously thousands of stores that you can choose from. They have them categorized by different categories, of course. So you can just go into the store section here and look up the stores that you're about to purchase from. And all you need to do is just click through that store from the app and make your purchase that way. And then you literally get the money back. It's crazy, right? So for example, with Walmart here, it says you get up to 3% cash back, and sometimes the percentages will change depending the time in the season and depending if they have any specials going on. So once you make those purchases and they go through, you'll be able to see on this main page, and you'll be able to go in and check your available cash back. And once you get to an amount that you want to withdraw, you can withdraw it either through PayPal, through check, through gift cards. There's a whole bunch of ways that you can actually take out the money, which is amazing. The other thing that you get as part of signing up through the link that I have down below is actually just $8 back for free. So there already is your free $8, which is amazing. And then another way that you can actually get cash back if you don't want to use the app is to download the Google Chrome extension, and that makes it super easy, because then when you're just shopping on your computer, then you can easily tap the Chrome extension to let you know what the discount back is if there is one for that store. So I absolutely love this app. I would highly recommend that you guys check it out if you guys are looking for a way to earn some money back, especially during this time of year. And so I'll leave the link in the description box below. And thank you, GoCashBack, for sponsoring this portion of the video. So let's get right back into the spreadsheet, and I'm going to first share with you how I do my budgeting. It's super simple, super easy. So you'll see in column C and D, that's where all my budget numbers are. And what I actually do is I just put a high level budget in for the year. These are kind of just made up numbers for you guys, but I just put a high level budget for the year. So for example, for my employment income, obviously I know my salary and my husband knows his salary, so I would just put in those for the year. Again, one thing I do want to note is that this is all of my after-tax dollars, so I wouldn't just put my full salary. I put, you know, based on my paychecks that I get every 2 weeks or every month or whenever, however you get paid, I would just take that number from my paycheck and then multiply it by the number of paychecks that I get to get my after-tax salary. And then after that, I would kind of estimate what I think I'm gonna get from my small business. I always like quote unquote, I don't know, I just like still can't imagine that this is like my real business, you know, that's why I do that. But you'll just see here that this is just kind of like approximately what I think I'm going to make or what I'm aiming to make for that year. And this again is a made up number, but that's what I would put in there. So then, and then in the other, you could put, if you have any more sources of income, you could put it through there. Okay, so the other thing that you could do, so I have my business income, you'll see in here, but I actually split it out further into the different streams in this business income statement tab. So because for my kind of like MomYe Plans brand, I have my Etsy shop, I have YouTube, and I have all these streams of income within it. I like to group them together under my business tab just to see this, like it's kind of like my side hustle tab to see how much money I'm making in aggregate. So let's say you just have one other source of business income, say it's YouTube or whatever, you could just add it here as well instead of putting it into like this separate tab. But you'll see when I start to explain this that the reason why I do that is in this separate tab, I calculate kind of the the tax on this income. So for example, if I were to just put my YouTube income here, it wouldn't necessarily make sense, because here I'm putting my after-tax income, and here I'm putting if I put just YouTube, that's before tax, right? Because you have to pay taxes on that income that you're earning. The reason why I like to put after-tax income here instead of obviously your pre-tax income is because when you're spending money in your expenses, like on my credit card, that's all my after-tax earnings, right? So if I put my after-tax spending down here, and then above in the income I put my pre-tax, that's overinflating how much money I actually have, right? So I'll think I'll have so much money, but actually I don't, because I didn't account for the taxes I'm about to pay. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. Okay, so that's that top part, and then below I kind of just estimate for budgeting purposes how I estimate my expenses. The best way for me is to just look at my credit card statements in the past couple years, or sorry, it doesn't have to be a couple years. I just look at it for last 1 or 2 years, let's say, or just 1 year. And so for the expenses, what I would just do for budgeting purposes, I kind of just take my credit card as a gauge of, you know, what my spending is, because I typically don't spend superfluously. So I look at my credit card, and that's kind of like the budgeted amount of what I think my expenses will be for that year. Again, I said it's very loose, unless I know I made some really major purchases that year, like furniture or whatever, something really big, or a reno or something. But aside from that, I just take my credit card as kind of like a high level budget, I guess, of the expense. Then what you could also do is I would go through my checking account and just see any withdrawals that came out directly from my bank account for the year. I would put those as kind of my budget expenses. So things like my utilities, my gas, hydro, all that kind of stuff comes directly from my bank account. And so I would just put those below as kind of a budget amount, because I can't really obviously set that budget. It is what it is. That's just how much I spend. I'm not going to use less water in a year, right? So I just take the previous year as kind of my high level number. And then of course, a mortgage is always a big one for everybody. Your property taxes. So I said utilities. Then I have insurance, car, home. So these are kind of all the things, like I just said, that come straight out of my bank account, and it's not necessarily through my credit card. So I haven't captured those expenses yet. Some other ones that you might have, like daycare or whatever, you might want to list those as well. So then after that, that's my expenses. I have my income. Then I put a line here, and this is my net income before savings. So of course I want to maybe put some of this money away. So here I'm trying to get to kind of a net zero budget for those of you who are into net zero budgets. Otherwise, if you don't care about a net zero budget, you can really just stay here. For most of my budgeting purposes, I typically just leave it like that and call it a day. As long as I know, you know, what's the money I got, what's the money I spent, then I don't really care where the rest goes. Because it's either just sitting in my checking account or I'm putting it into savings afterwards. But if you want to get to net zero, then you can do it this way. And then here you would kind of put in, okay, so here's all my savings categories and how much I'm going to contribute to each of those. And then you obviously want that number, net number below, to be zero. So clearly I've overspent somewhere. So let's say I change this to 20,000. If I change this to 20,000, so there, you'll see that now my net is zero and everything is kind of accounted for. Okay? So then of course in the monthlies, you'll see that there is a formula there already, which basically just takes everything divided by 12, so that if you're doing your monthly expenses, monthly budgeting or whatever, you know what the target is that you're aiming for that month. Okay, so that's just a really, really straightforward, really simple way to do a budget. It's always worked for me. Yeah, so if you guys, especially if you guys are just starting out, this is a really easy, like, not intimidating way to do a budget. Of course, if you know that you really overspend on things, then you might want to like pare back your credit card or whatever. But either way, you kind of see like, you don't want this net number to be negative, right? Because then you've overspent. So naturally, you'll adjust your budget to make sure you're only spending what's in your means. Okay, so then the rest is pretty straightforward. So what I do each month, and how do I get rid of this There, hi keyboard. So then when I do the rest of this, the months to manage my money and my expenses, is I just come in on the first of each month to do the previous month's expenses, right? Because obviously I have to wait till the end of the month. And so, for example, on February 1, I would come in and I would fill in all of these numbers for January. And what I do is I would just go into my bank account and I would pull out, okay, what was my income numbers? What was my expenses? What was my credit cards that I was paying off? What came through as my property taxes, my mortgage, all of that stuff. And I would just fill it in to see what was my actual numbers. And then, of course, based on that, maybe I would allocate the savings, or if you don't care about net zero, you would just stop here. But if you want to get to net zero, you can specifically move that money into your various savings accounts. And then if you want to keep a little buffer, say in your checking account, you would just, I kind of left this checking account here. So the checking is just the difference between your income and where you allocated the rest of your money to. Okay, so it's just kind of like the catch-all so that you get to a net zero. Okay, and so I would just do that for each month, and this really allows you to kind of see if you hit your monthly numbers very easily. So you can see here, what was my actual income, what did I predict that I was going to get in my budget, what did I actually spend, what did I think I was going to spend, and then below, what did I save, what did I want to save, kind of thing. So it's just a really easy way to see compare your monthly against your budgeted numbers. Then that I would do that for each of the months, obviously, and I have a total here, and also in column S I actually have a percentage of budget so that you can easily see if you're achieving your budget, if you're below your budget, whatever, right? And I'm just going to quickly show you here, I added in some graphs just for you guys who are more visual and want to see how your income streams and your expenses track throughout the months. You'll see that these graphs align to obviously whatever income sources you put in and what expenses sources you have put in. And so you'll see kind of the trend line of what expenses, for example, are going up and down throughout the months. Then I also added the net income before your savings, like, what does your net income look like in terms of the income minus your expenses. Then below here, if you guys are interested, I also broke down by month, where's your income coming from? Where is your expenses coming from? And then you can just easily see kind of in a pie form what the major components are. So that in a nutshell is basically this first sheet. And if you just do this first sheet, you're I would say 90% of the way there, and at least keeping on top of your money. I'm not one that goes so detailed into my credit cards to check every single transaction. But what I found most helpful when looking at a budget and managing your money is really to look at your trends each month to see, okay, each month, where am I sitting? If there's a big dip, then I might investigate that month, okay? Or if I'm if it's really high in a certain month, then I might go in and specifically, again, dive into that month. But if they're all hovering about the same, then I know that it's probably just natural spending, natural income. And so I wouldn't really look into it. And that's how I have done my income and managing my money for the past couple of years. Okay. So that's that. Now, if you have kind of a side hustle or your own little business that's, kind of in this small stage where it's really just part of your personal income and you're not doing a whole, separate entity and it doesn't have its own taxes and its own life, I guess, then you could do it the same way that I do, which is I track my income from these various sources in this second tab. So if you go in here, I basically would list out all my different types of revenues. So for example, from my Etsy shop, from YouTube AdSense, from affiliate links, the different sources of income I have here, I would put here on this tab on this side. I have an FX number here because, for example, Amazon affiliates, as an example, pays me in USD, but I am here in Canada, so I need to translate that back into Canadian dollars. So that's why I added it there, and I would, multiply out the income each month by the FX rate. Then below, I would kind of list all of my expenses for my business. So for example, here I put variable and fixed. So some fixed expenses for me, for example, is like, you know, my printing costs. Like each month I'm testing printable inserts, and that would be a printer cost. If you have website fees, for example, and you pay monthly for that, like Shopify fees, then you would put it in there. Various, I don't know, other fees or other things that you pay for on a monthly basis, that's the exact same as a fixed expense, and I would just add those in these line items here. Now, on each month, I'll obviously also have variable expenses, which is expenses that changes each month based on, you know, you buying whatever you're buying that month. So for me, for example, if I bought a new planner or I bought some new accessories or whatever that I'm using in my business, that I'm using in YouTube videos, then I would add it here into my variable expenses. And so I created a separate tab for that where you just put in the date, you put in the description of what it is that you bought, the store that you bought it from, and then the amount, and it'll automatically calculate in column B, like what month it's related to, and your spreadsheet here on the business income statement, the business IS tab, will just automatically capture those expenses into the corresponding month that it's supposed to be in. So that makes it really easy for you guys. You'll see that I put in some expenses here and it's just captured them and allocated them to the correct month. Okay, so there's all my revenue, then that's all my expenses, and then I will put in a tax rate. So I put in this because obviously all of this income is going to be taxed for me, and you just put in whatever your personal tax rate would be because it's not an incorporated business. It just gets taxed at your personal tax rate. At least here for us in Canada, you know, if you're in the US in a different country, it might be different. You have to talk to your CPA about that. So then what I do is I just say, okay, what's the income before tax and what is the tax on that income? And so the reason I do it like this is because there's going to be certain expenses, obviously all of these expenses that are related and for my business that I can deduct from that income. So I won't be taxed fully on this line 11 here. I'm going to be taxed on the amount net of those expenses. Okay, so I calculate that and that becomes my net income after tax. And then how this relates to my income statement sheet here is you'll see that on this tab here, I'm pulling in my income from my business tab and I'm pulling in the total revenue minus the taxes. Okay, so you'll see that I'm taking this line minus the tax that I calculated here. Okay, and that becomes what my income is, because like I said earlier, here I'm putting my after-tax amounts, right? So now this becomes my after-tax side hustle money. And so you're wondering, why am I taking that instead of net income from this tab? Why am I not just taking this line, right? The reason why I'm not taking this line is because my expenses that I calculated here, you know, all of these expenses, I have been paying for through my personal credit card, you know, just through my personal way of paying. So that has already been captured in my credit card line as an example, right? Like I keep saying that this is a small business that's just attached to me personally. It's not its own entity. It doesn't have its own bank account. It doesn't have its own credit card. And so I've already paid these expenses through my credit card. So if I then go here and take out the net income, I'm double counting those expenses. Does that make sense? I hope I'm not losing you because I know there's a lot of numbers, a lot of back and forth, but hopefully that helps, okay? So that's that there, and then I kind of explained what that is. And then the last one I want to show you is the balance sheet tab. So the balance sheet tab, again, you don't really need this. This is just a way to track what your net worth is, I guess. So here on this tab, you would just list out all of the assets that you have and then all of the liabilities or loans or whatever that you have, right? So the asset is anything you own, a liability is anything that you owe. So here sometimes, you know, like I wouldn't really go and value my house, obviously. But just if you wanted to know, you could look up the market rate of what your house is and add it here. Then your car is going to be probably not worth a lot unless you have a vintage or really expensive car. And then here I would put in kind of like what my investment savings balances are. Again, remember, this isn't like what you put into your investments that year. That money you added on the income statement tab earlier. This is what is the balance. What is the total amount you have in your savings? Okay, then sinking funds, whatever, and then this becomes my total assets. Then on the liability side, I have, okay, what's my mortgage, my loans, my credit cards, and then that becomes the total amount that I owe, and the net between the two of them is what I'm worth. Okay, so this has actually been helpful for me because sometimes I forget about certain like investments that I have. So for example, my husband also has investments, or he puts money in my girls' RESP, so I forget about those balances all the time. So I like to update this spreadsheet from time to time just so that I can have those in mind, that we do have those investments or those savings. So I do find that that helps here. You don't need to do it every single month. I definitely don't update it every single month, but I'll do it like 2 or 3 times a year just to see how things are changing. And that's pretty much it. If you guys made it all the way here, please comment down below 2023 budget so I know you made it all the way through, because this was quite a feat. There are so many numbers here, I know. Walking through spreadsheets is always really boring. So the fact that you guys made it through, kudos to you. If you guys have any questions on the spreadsheet and how it works, or if something's not working for you, just comment down below in the description. Just comment down below in the comments area, because I do look at all of the comments and I'll try to get back to you on any questions. And I did try to make, like I said, those notes on the side just in case you have questions about what to put in there, but hopefully this video walked you through most of that. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys like these kind of videos, please let me know down below. I'm always looking for new things to share with you guys. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.